Josh Burch, the director of people at the Honor Foundation, his gifting is definitely people and a translator. I think you hit on something perfect in the podcast that just like how he had to learn Arabic in 6 months of immersive training as a kid from Manchester, Tennessee, learning Arabic, he's had to learn how to translate from military speak to civilian and from civilian to military speak. And I think that's amazing in the heart of service that was so clear coming off of him.
I really loved hearing his story about growing up on his granddaddy's farm. And, I think when the country as a whole thinks of Tennessee, they think of Nashville, maybe sometimes Memphis and Knoxville and Chattanooga. But there are strengths in the people from east to west, north to south. And I love that he said Manchester's still home. And that was the community that built him, and how those are the stories we're hearing every day from people across the state. And I just find that so beautiful that there is no nook or cranny overlooked, that he is a testament to what this state creates. It's like it's in the water. It's why I wanted to have my kids here. It just creates this grit and this beauty in people, regardless of where you're from, that I think it's really cool.
And I think his story beginning in a really tough moment, that it's a teen pregnancy. He's afraid to tell his mom, so he tells his dad, and ultimately it leads him on a course to having to bang fence posts into the ground and pull wire, which is about the hardest job you're going to do on a farm. And his granddad sits him on the back of the truck and says, you need to get into the service. And what a different life Josh may have lived. I think he told us about that himself.
Yeah.
Had he not been coachable and teachable to say, all right, I'm going to listen to the wisdom of my granddad,
Sure.
who's sitting here telling me himself that I'm not the man that you think I am. I'm just the product of the 5 people that I've spent the most time around.
I think what I really heard from this is something you and I talk about a lot as we evaluate what business we're going to do next, or what we want to do with our family or beyond, right? Is this feeling of not being afraid to do something because it's hard. There could be a lot of reasons to or to not do something, but how hard something is or how much sacrifice you're going to have to make to do it cannot be part of the calculus. You can think about everything else, but refusing to be afraid of doing hard things. And that's what I heard from Josh. That's what I heard from his wife, from his kids, even though they didn't know it. He was even saying, that life was kind of thrust upon them. But the fruit that it's produced is just so powerful when you're not afraid to do hard things.
I think that translates really, really well in his story and the ultimate outcome, that his service leaves a mark every day on not only his fellow veterans, but his family, in that he has sacrificed like what most leaders have to do. The higher you climb that chain, the more that you have to sacrifice. But I think it's also powerful in that he doesn't sit across from a single man or woman on any day where he is saying, well, I didn't do this, but you had to do this. Is that probably in nearly every case, as a Green Beret that served 16 deployments, he is sitting at a even higher level than the person he's having to relate to. And that's what makes him a great leader, is that he's not asking anybody to do something that he hasn't done himself. And that can be sacrifice family, sacrifice opportunity, sacrifice earning potential, all the different things, even sacrifice fishing and hunting elk. He's done it all.
Well, and I thought it was interesting, too, how he talked about how hard it is for these special ops men and women to talk about themselves. It makes them feel icky.
Yeah.
And you could feel that on him. He was so authentic, but the idea of sharing his own story is so raw. And I am so inspired by this idea that it is never about self-promotion. Not 1 ounce of what he's doing, what the Honor Foundation is doing, any of this is about name recognition or them as an individual. It's about helping the greater whole. And I think as you talk about growing in leadership, sometimes people need to know your name so you're effective, sometimes they don't, but the goal can never be, should never be pride or who I am or what I climb to. It's always about what is my reach to serve the most number of people possible. And I feel like he really embodied that in such an authentic way that it's powerful to the people he helps. But gosh, I hope even if people listening to this have no military background and do not feel called to that kind of service, they will see that in his humanity, because that's a bug I hope all of us catch.
Oh, I really love that. That's a great identification in him, that the heart posture of service is what has allowed him to be elevated. It was never about self-promotion. And it's that really delicate line between having to do the things in a civilian business climate to promote and market. But in doing so, he's never lost sight that he's doing it for his fellow soldier, not in the elevation of himself.
Because he'd probably rather be with his map.
Yeah, that's right.
Walking by himself. It's actually sacrificing itself to be in front when your heart posture is in that place.